Welcome to AQMD on the Air. I'm your host, Mark Carroll. Our guest today is Gerald Secundy, the President and CEO of the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance, or CEEB. Mr. Secundy has an extensive background with business, regulatory agencies, and the environmental community, and has more than 4 decades of leadership experience. Before joining CEEB, he served as Vice Chair of the California State Water Resources Control Board. Other past roles include serving as Executive Director of Audubon, California, Vice President of External Affairs and Environmental Health and Safety at Atlantic Richfield Company, CFO of Arco Transportation Company, and as an attorney for the U.S. Department of Justice. Gerald Secundy, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Let's first start with some background. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Yes, CEEB was founded in 1973 by former Governor Pat Brown, and he had 2 goals in mind: a healthy environment and a healthy economy, and he didn't see any reason that the two should conflict, and neither do we today. So it's a collaborative effort. We have business members, we have labor members, we have state agencies, we have environmental groups, and we have within the business membership, we have autos, railroads, airplanes, utilities, oil companies. We have entertainment industries. We have IT industries. So it's a very, very broad spectrum. And we work on a consensus basis.
And so can you tell us a little bit about CEEB's philosophy and priorities with regard to the air quality area?
Well, we probably have what I would call 3 mantras. The first is that whatever should be done in a cost-effective manner as long as we can achieve the environmental goals. Secondly, it should be technologically feasible, i.e. we can accomplish it. Third, and perhaps most important, we feel everyone should pull their fair share. So whoever's contributing to the environmental problems should also contribute to the solutions to those problems.
Speaking of pollution, in this region, in the South Coast Air Basin, transportation accounts for about 80% of the emissions. And I understand that CEEB has an air quality project that it focuses on in the South Coast area. Can you tell us a little bit about that effort and how CEEB works with stakeholders in air quality?
Certainly. First, I'd have to say the South Coast AQMD has done an excellent job in the purview in which they have the regulatory authority, which is really stationary sources. And those stationary sources have really been what I would call squeezed down and have really substantially reduced their emissions. But as you've said, 80% of the emissions now come from mobile sources. And that's really the purview more of the feds and the state is what it amounts to. So we try to work with our members in terms of doing things that we think will help clean up the mobile source emissions. We've worked very hard on a lot of incentive programs, such as the Carl Moyer program, and some of the legislation that gives incentives to people to trade up their trucks or their cars for cleaner vehicles. Perhaps most importantly, our members and CEEB has worked very hard on low sulfur diesel. We have basically been able to remove 97% of sulfur from diesel over the last few years. It's now less than 15 parts per million. If you were to talk to John Deere or Caterpillar or Cummins, those engine manufacturers who have produced remarkable engines would tell you that they would not work without low sulfur diesel. In addition, we were one of the first people to come out for a Smog Check program, oh gosh, many long years ago. And just this last year we've updated that Smog Check program so that it would no longer just be a tailpipe check, but instead it would be what we call OBD2, which is onboard diagnostic. You simply plug into the computer to your car and it can tell you whether or not the car is emitting or can pass the smog check or not pass the smog check. So we've done a great deal over the last few years. And then finally, in terms of MTBE, methyl tertiary butyl ether, which was one of the components of gasoline that was put in a number of years ago, we worked very hard to reformulate gasoline in what we call the reformulation number 3 to phase out MTBE and put in other components that would not be such a danger to the water table.
You were talking a little bit about the Smog Check program. I understand now that you're saying that it's a combination both of the tailpipe and the onboard diagnostics. Do you see that as improving the reduction of emissions further?
Well, really, number one, it's cost savings because it's much cheaper to do an onboard diagnostic than it is a tailpipe emission test. That's number one. Number two, it's much more accurate. So in that sense, it will improve the emissions from these various automobiles. Tailpipe testing will probably still have to be done on some of the older vehicles that do not have an onboard diagnostic. But for most people, it'll be quick, easy, and cheaper.
Great. Okay. Let me turn now to environmental justice.
Yes.
The AQMD believes that all people have a right to equal environmental protection, and thus environmental justice is very important to what the AQMD does. How does environmental justice play a role with regard to CEEB?
I think SEEB was probably the first industry association to come out with its own statement on environmental justice, and we did this at least a dozen years ago. We feel absolutely that people should be treated in a fair manner regardless of their race, their ethnicity, or their economic prowess, if you like. So we're very strong in that. We don't always agree with those folks that are advocates for environmental justice. We both have the same goals. Sometimes we simply have a different path of getting there, is what it amounts to. But we are very, very much in favor of, again, an equal playing field for all people. One of the major problems, however, is land use. What has happened over the years is because of, frankly, very poor urban planning in terms of land use, we have sited housing and schools next to emission sources, next to highways and next to industrial plants, etc. That we shouldn't be doing because it simply is putting people in greater danger and they shouldn't be put there.
Another issue that we deal with here, and I know that SEEB deals with, is climate change. And California has been a leader on climate change. What are some of the economic opportunities specifically for Southern California that may come about because of our leadership on climate change?
Well, most people, when they answer that question, talk about green jobs. I honestly don't like the term green jobs. I am much more in favor of anything that is going to reduce the carbon footprint. So if you're, for example, talking to an electrician that is wiring a house so that it can receive electricity from a solar panel, is that a green job compared to that same electrician doing the same job that's connecting wires from a central source? So right. Do you call it a green job or a brown job or what kind of a job? It doesn't matter to me. All you really want to do is make certain that you're reducing that carbon footprint. And you also have to, frankly, make certain that in our economy, and it's a very fragile economy right now, we don't have what I would call leakage, where we are losing jobs in California going to other states because of our regulations. We're trying to have somewhat of a, frankly, a level playing field and making certain that we are taking care of those people that perhaps are going to have to transform their jobs from what they're currently doing to a new type of job.
I really appreciate you coming here today, and we want to thank you for participating. Gerald Secundy, President and CEO of the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, that's our show. Thank you for watching AQMD on the Air. Visit us at cleanairconnections.org to learn how you can help us clean the air that we breathe.
Let's work together.